Once again, I'd like to thank Dr. Raka for this very kind invitation to have me for this very interesting talk. And I think, today in the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to talk from my heart. And I've been told to talk on grooming for medical research and paper writing in OPD practice. What I'm going to do basically in this small talk is give my views on medical research in 2022. So it's going to be a more broad based understanding of the relevance of medical research in today's era. And more importantly, I think to people who are listening to this, my idea is to perhaps inspire them to innovate. I very strongly believe that innovation is the way forward for anything, whether it is medical research or whether it is, clinical practice or whether it is fighting a pandemic like COVID. In all these cases, innovation is very, very important. So, what you're going to hear is my views on this topic in a very broad way, but at the same time, at the end of the talk, I hope you're inspired to research and innovate, and also inspired to, you're better off with some new tools which you can use for the same. Okay, so this is the outline for my talk. So I'm going to talk about the true purpose of research, what's the importance of innovation, how you can do a structured data collection in your OPD, the future of data, importance of team building and outsourcing, and incentives for research. So these are the broad topics we are going to discuss. So, what is the true purpose of research? Now, I see research from an entrepreneurial perspective, right? So, let's say you're taking a class on entrepreneurship, the first thing you're taught in entrepreneurship is that you should try to solve problems which the society has or which a person has. For example, let's say you had problem with hiring taxi. You create an app like Uber, which what it does is, you have an app and you can call a cab right at your home. So you're solving a society problem, right? If you have a problem with, for old elderly people have problem getting medicines at home, you have an app like Farm Easy which delivers the medicines at home. So people will use it. The same way, the same concept also holds true for research. You need something that answers a burning question or a requirement. For example, in today's world, a relevant topic would be how do you, create a new vaccine for the Omicron variant of the COVID-19, something like that, which is a burning question, which the society or a problem which the society has. Or your research sometimes could be a building block for future research. So let's say you have done some epidemiological study on Omicron variant of COVID-19, and if somebody else wants to create a vaccine or wants to, see the impact of this variant on the health outcomes, perhaps they will use your data to generate more data. So it acts as a building block for a future research. So it has to be one of these two, and if it is one of these two, your research is going to be not only used by clinicians but also quoted widely in your overall nature. So let's talk about solving a problem through innovation in an entrepreneurship way. So, for example, these are some of the research which I find, one of them is mine. So, sorry for the bias. But, when I started my practice or when I'm working in a OPD, these are some questions which I have in mind. For example, how do you treat a patient with diabetes who is given steroids? This was a question I had. When I joined my endocrinology training, we used to see a lot of patients with post-transplant diabetes or patients who are given steroid by rheumatologists, and these patients develop severe hyperglycemia. And in my very first week of my endocrinology training, I asked my seniors, how do you do that? They said, these are some of the ways, these are some papers you can read on that. But I wanted a more definitive answer of what's the best way of treating a patient with steroid. And then I went to my professor, and he, Dr. Surinder Kumar, he said, why don't you make this as your thesis topic? So the idea is that this is a burning question I had, and by research I tried to solve the problem. Another very common question is, should thyroid function be done in a fasting or a non-fasting sample? And it's a very elegant study done from India, published in Indian Journal of Endocrinology and Metabolism, which answers this question. Another question is diabetes remission possible? These are all burning questions of today. There are a lot of patients who ask, can mera diabetes theek ho sakta hai? Can it become, can we remit it? Can it go into remission? These are all questions which we need answers for. So, for the first question, this is the paper which we wrote, and this is a study which we did, and a paper which we wrote, and it's widely quoted now, very very useful in clinical practice. For the same way, somebody had that burning question: does time of sampling of food alter thyroid function? So should you do a thyroid function test in fasting or in a non-fasting state? And you had Dr. Sriram who did this study and then published it. So it's something which is useful in clinical practice. Same way, somebody had this idea that why can diabetes type 2 diabetes undergo remission, and then you had this big direct trial which said that yes, it is possible. So you are trying to answer a burning question, and by answering this burning question, you are more likely to produce a successful research. A true research is something which helps patients or doctors in their day-to-day life. I really dislike studies which are just done for the sake of doing research, right? For example, I heard uric acid levels in patients with metabolic syndrome. Now, how does it? You already have plenty of data on that. What is more data, generating more data on this topic is really going to help you? Nothing much. Same way, there are studies like, carotid edema media thickness. I'm not saying they are bad research. I'm saying that, you could do better. You could use your time and resources to do something which is more meaningful. So a true research is really something which you practice in day-to-day life and which helps you in day-to-day life. So next time when you're sitting in the OPD and you have a question in your mind, try to use research to solve the problem. That's the idea which I'm really looking at. Always remember, again, if you talk about Newton, for example, I mean, Newton asked a very fundamental question. So if you have questions in your mind, try to answer them yourself. For example, why does blood sugar increase in patient, or why is there hyperglycemia because of COVID-19? That's a question, right? Now it's something worth researching, right? So if you have a question which is in your mind, try to answer that, and that is really true research, right? Like Newton said, why is this apple falling down? That's actually basis for research. So what you observe, try to answer it. And then you have, all in all, I love this word jugaad. Jugaad is, I think it's a brilliant word which combines innovation with simplicity. And the best research are basically jugaad, which you have managed to publish, right? That is what I really, like about research, that, you are innovating something, you are doing something new. Like, this is a picture of the Mumbai Dabbawala, who has solved a very complex problem using ribbons and using simple things. These are, not educated people, yet they are able to deliver dabbas across the complexity like Mumbai with utmost precision. This is basically jugaad, and this kind of work needs to be published, right? I know a lot of surgeons who have made new techniques for surgery. I know a lot of doctors who a lot of clinicians who practice in a lot of new ways. Look, if you have invented something, if you have done a jugaad in your practice, if you publish it, that is true research, right? That is what really we are looking for. And we say that India में से research paper नहीं आते, but India में से innovation बहुत होता है, right? We have so much innovation. Unfortunately, we do not publish our innovation, do not share it with the world. And then you have the concept. This is a concept I very truly believe. Uh, Sorry, there is some noise in the background. Can we? Yeah. Okay. And one more thing which I very strongly believe is that research always comes from bleeding edge of multiple fields. So if you're good at more than one field, try to use that in your research. For example, if you're good at mathematics or in data sciences, combine that with your clinical skill. If you're even within your branch, if you're good at, let's say, you're good at managing patients with cardiovascular disease and you're also seeing patients with diabetes, that's something where you need to really combine. So if you want to do good research, you need to combine the domain knowledge of two fields, and in that way you are able to really do innovative work. Then, of course, you have other type of research where you build blocks for future research. For example, you have this very nice study by Dr. Rajesh Rajput, who actually did a prevalence study in patients, with thyroid dysfunction in first trimester of pregnancy. And then what he did the next study to look at trimester-specific reference range for thyroid hormone. So he used one study of his own acting as a building block for the next study, and that again is true quality research. Again, for example, something like another study from Dr. Sriram Mahadevan, you talked about normative data for stretch penile rate. This is something, which is important, right? We have people come to us with concerns about short penile length in children, and then if you have normative data in your local region, that is really useful, and you can perhaps use that as a building block in for future research, right? And so on and so forth. This is our study which we did. So the idea is that you need to either use research as to ask a burning question or to solve a problem, or use as a building block for next research. So innovation again is very very important. We talked about this. What are the biggest research which has happened in the field of medicine in the past few years, past 100 years perhaps, or more than 100 years? Vaccination, penicillin, radioimmunoassays, insulin, these are all true innovations, right? And without this, the society would not be as we know it today. uh, the same way, you can now, perhaps we cannot be the next Edward Jenner, because he worked in a very different era, but now we work in an era which is even easier to do research, where there is a lot of scope. Unfortunately, we don't do this very commonly. So for those people, and those who are listening to this, one simple thing I want you to do: whatever patients you see in your practice, just collect the data, right? Just do the data collection, and perhaps that data collection would be used by you in future for research, right? And there are a lot of third parties which help you to understand your own data and try to kind of create papers out of it. So start doing some structured data collection in your practice. For example, I used to before write my prescriptions with hand. Then I moved to something very simple. I started putting my prescription in a simple Word document. Right now, what it does is, every time I need to, let's say, publish a case study or something like that, everything is there in this Word document. The patient's photos, the patient's MRIs and patient CT scan and blood reports, everything is there. So I don't need to kind of hunt for it. Everything is there in this single Word document, and then I can easily write a case report. Then I moved to something, somebody told me that this way of collecting data is good, but it's not great, because if you want to do really analytics, perhaps you need to have more structured data collection. So we made this kind of system called JotForm, used a system called JotForm, where we made a very elegant integrated diabetes template where you can collect every single data points in your patients. And this has generated me thousands of data points, which so far I have not published, but there's a lot of data for me to really work at and perhaps use it for paper publication in future. And then today, these days, I learned a little bit of Python coding as well. And this is what I started doing. Use a small software code to really generate simple applications which can collect data in a more simplistic manner. So the idea, what I'm trying to tell you is that I don't want you to start coding in Python, but my point is that whatever works for you, you can use a simple Google Doc, you can use a simple Excel sheet, or whatever works for you. You start collecting the data in your own practice, and that is really going to help you in future. And remember, there will be people who will pay you for your data, right? Forget anything else. There'll be, your data itself will be worth millions of rupees or millions of dollars in future, and that is something you should really need to look at. So these are all the things which I've used over the past few years, trying to collect the data, trying to perfect the system. Right now I'm still not, I would say, perfect, but I think I'm really getting close to that. Now right now I have all my data points almost captured very easily and elegantly. Then I said, like I said, the future is really data, and this you need to really understand, right? If you see major corporations, the FANG corporations, the Facebook, the Alphabet, which is Google, right? You have Netflix, Amazon. What are these companies really doing? Apple, right? All these companies, though they make products, but their main force and main work is actually data collection. How does Google make money? How does Facebook make money? Right? These two are the biggest corporations. I'm sure you know that. And these two corporations, their basic idea is to collect data. Unfortunately, in healthcare, we have plenty of data which is going to be so useful in future for machine learning algorithms, for AI algorithms. Unfortunately, we do not collect it, and we miss out in a we might miss out in a very important golden opportunity. Remember, data is gold mine, right? If we it's like gold हमारे पास आ रहा है, नहीं हम उसको स्टोर नहीं कर रहे, उसको जाने दे रहे हैं, जाओ, नहीं चाहिए हमें gold, right? So this is what Vinod Khosla said. Vinod Khosla is an Indian, but he's an American billionaire. He's a co-founder of Sun Microsystems. These are the same people who made Java, right? What he said is, in the next 10 years, data science and software will do more for medicines than all the biological sciences together. And this time has already started. Please wake up and start, looking at this reality, right? See how research is done during the COVID era. It's all about data. And if we don't do this, unfortunately, we are letting a very important problem, very important thing slip through our hands. And most important, of course, is to build a team and start outsourcing. Whatever I said today cannot be done, on your own. You need people, you need help. Perhaps you need an assistant who will enter the data. Perhaps you will need a software professional or computer professional to help you design all these systems. You would perhaps require somebody to assist you to write a paper, perhaps to analyze your data, and so on and so forth. So it's always good idea to, look for these people. There are agencies, there are organizations which help you to do that. And if you're able to get the right team for this, your publication, you will become a publication monster. You will become like, start churning out papers every few months, and that is what really, is going to build your reputation in future. And of course, the problem at a more meta level is incentive. The biggest challenge with not having too many publications from India is that we are not incentivizing research. That is the biggest problem, right? For example, what really are incentives for research, and where do this research really happen? So first, you have thesis for your MD or DM or DNB. That time you have to do research, right? That's what you're doing. So a lot of people do it just because they have to complete their thesis. And then, of course, those who work in medical colleges, for getting promotions, they need to do research. Then in some cases there would be some monetary incentive. For example, some clinical trials you will be paid, or there are certain research awards, like Chelaram is going to have, a diabetes conference where there is research award for that. So there is some monetary incentive, small amount, not big things, but that is there. Then of course, a lot of people publish just to fulfill their own self ego. Look, I can also publish, right? That's the thing. But I think all these four are, on a long run, on again a meta level, are not important. The most important incentive for research is curiosity. Look at people who have been the most successful in science over the years, whether it is Newton, or whether it is if you see Fleming, or any of these people, right? Over the years, Benting at best, and all these people, the one thing which is common to all good scientists, all good, people who really innovate, is curiosity, right? If you want to know, right, ये कैसे होता है, how does this work, how does this, what will happen if I give this medicine, what will happen if I don't give this medicine, right? These are all curiosity, right? I'm not saying you experiment on your patient, no. What I'm saying is generate a sense of curiosity, bring out your curious self. A lot of you, left it behind you in your childhood. If you see my own children, I see my children who are very curious. They want to know, why does the sun come from the east, why is today windy, why is it warm today, why is it hot today, why do we have to sleep at 11 o'clock in the night? Everything has a question behind it. There is curiosity. Unfortunately, life takes this curiosity, this juice of life, really, it's taken out, it's absorbed as we age. But we need to bring back this childlike curiosity. If you bring this back, trust me, you will be successful in anything you do, whether it is research or your clinical practice or anything. Curiosity is what really drives human behavior and human change. And of course, what you need to know, remember, don't, downgrade yourself. Remember, you are the next Jenner, you are the next Fleming, you are the next Yellow, you are the next Benting. You are. It's only that you don't know, right? And that's the most important thing which I can say today. So, what I believe, what is my purpose of doing research, my idea is that, I want to create, we all talk about, doctor patient ratio खराब है, हमारे पास doctors नहीं है, experts नहीं है, specialists नहीं है. We don't need so many people. What we need is, we need to use technology to drive. You need, let's say, for example, you have somebody who creates a treatment protocol for, COVID-19 with all the variables. इसमें अगर ऐसा है, ये वेरिएंट है तो ये देना है, अगर ये होता है तो ये देना है. Somebody sits and makes this protocol, and this same protocol is followed in every hospital, whether it is a small village hospital, or whether it's a big city corporate hospital. What will happen? The expertise is then trickles down to the lowest common denominator. That is what really, good technology can help us do. And that's what I'm trying to do. So whatever research that, I've been doing, or what I'm trying to do in the next few years, is really to use technology to solve problems of this poor doctor patient ratio that we say we have. So again, one aspect of this, and what I believe is very important is to educate doctors. And sometimes, we see that we our learning often ends after we finish our residencies and all. But remember, medicine is a lifelong learning process, and in that process, we have created this small app. I'm very proud of it. So I keep talking about it all the time. It's called Notes in Endocrinology app. It's available on both the Android, iOS, and of course, you have the website also available, which is www.endocrinology.co.in. So if you're really interested in endocrinology, we constantly publish simple to understand and read topics in endocrinology which are practically useful, and also videos and lectures like which are useful to you. So you can perhaps use that. This is completely free of charge and will always be free of charge for life now, right? So that's the idea, right? So the idea is really, like I said, to use research to trickle down and to really go to a level where it can reach to the masses. So that's my idea, but I'm sure your life purpose may be different, and perhaps research is what is going to help you, reach your life's goals. Thank you.